Hey everyone, and welcome to Cleveland FC. My name is Parker. Let's get started talking about MLS Fantasy Game Week number 3. So, any notes to start off with? The CONCACAF Champions League got started this week, and this is, of course, MLS's annual mission trip to Central America, the Caribbean, and Mexico, complete with an adorable dog on the field in El Salvador. So to kind of give a quick recap for anything relevant to fantasy, Austin got crushed, but they played nowhere near their first choice 11. Nick Lima was playing center back, for example. DeRusi didn't even travel. And Amro Tarek hit an absolute thunder rocket into his own net. I think Austin's backline has certain problems this year. This means that the starters are going to be fresh for their game versus Real Salt Lake, though. So if you're looking at them, they might still be an option. Philly played Alianza in El Salvador. There was lots of rotation in this one. A lot of the younger players got a look. Wagner started, though, and he went 90 minutes. Gazdag and Carranza came on for the last 30 minutes just in time to pet a dog, get in some fights, and have a 0-0 draw. Orlando played a first-choice team against Tigres, and Pedro Gallese, he had an awesome game. They got a clean sheet, 0-0 draw in Mexico. It's a pretty huge result for them, but it'll be interesting to see if that cost them over the weekend. Next, Vancouver hung 5 on Real España. Gald had 2 assists, Gressel had an assist, Brian White got a goal, and España's manager blamed the result on the cold. LAFC whooped up on Alajuelense in Costa Rica. Dennis Bugana had a hat trick, and Hollingshead had 2 assists. They did play pretty much a first choice 11. Chiellini and Cifuentes all played 90. Carlos Vela came off just before the 70th minute. So that kind of covers any of the news for coming out of CCL this week. And so getting on to this week, I think some matches that you're going to want to target will be Philly versus Chicago. I really like that matchup for Philly. You're definitely going to, I think, want to triple up on them. Nashville is going to play Montreal. So I think good options for Nashville's defense, their keeper, and maybe Ani Mukhtar if he ends up starting. Would be a great pick. Portland takes on St. Louis, and I think that could be an interesting matchup for Portland. I think that St. Louis might run out of steam a little bit. I think that they will run up into some MLS reality at some point, and it could very well happen in this game. San Jose is playing against Colorado. Colorado's looked bad at trying to be able to create chances and effectively creating them. And San Jose's looked pretty good going forward, and at home I really like that match for them. So for players, I think that you're going to be, we'll get started with our goalkeepers. So Daniel from San Jose, he's at a good price. He's 5.4. He's starting for them, and he's at home versus Colorado. I think that it's still early in the season, so we're kind of going on the eye test. They haven't looked great, but their expected goals is at 1.55, so maybe they're getting a little bit unlucky. Consider that a little bit before picking him. Andre Blake versus Chicago. I think that this is a pretty easy pick if you want to go with a premium keeper. Just that price tag might keep some folks away. I think the other one is going to be Gallese against DC United. That's going to be a gamble, but he looked very good against Tigres, and that was away in Mexico City. Again, they might have some rotation, given that they started kind of their top players. For Keeperu, Atlanta and Charlotte play a really early game. You would look at either of those keepers. I'm very, very doubtful of Atlanta's defense, so take that with a grain of salt. And then I think that anyone switching with Daniel from San Jose, they've got a late kickoff on Saturday night. That would be a good play. Real quick, if you are enjoying the video, please give it subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to like the video and leave a comment. You can also give me a follow on Twitter. I am at Cleveland_FC. Next, getting to our defenders. So I think that everyone's going to be, once again, you're going to look at Kai Wagner almost every week. I think I really like this match against Chicago. Last week against Miami, he led the team in touches, and he had 3 shot-creating actions. I think he's a good pick. If you're only going with one premium defender, he would be my pick. Though I think there might be some debate with his next name. Walker Zimmerman, he's got a goal already this year. He's at home against Montreal, and Montreal have not scored a goal yet. They've been on the road the last 2 games. I think that they're going to continue to struggle. And I also like his teammate, Jack Mayer. He's a good option if you don't want Zimmerman. He's a little bit less expensive. I think he's 6.5. Or you pair him with Zimmerman if you like that a lot and want to double up. For San Jose, I like an interesting pick could be Paul Marie. He's 5.8, so he's a cheaper option. Good matchup against Colorado. He also came off early against Atlanta and got a clean sheet in that one. So that might be an advantage in this game if he manages to go 60 minutes and if he got a clean sheet. Juan Mosquera from Portland, he's at 6.5. He had a goal. He's got a goal and an assist and a clean sheet on the year. So 3 returns already. Pretty solid. St. Louis have been flying this year, so you might need a goal or an assist from him, or like I said, St. Louis might get that MLS reality check on the road in Portland this week. An interesting choice that's way more of a budget option would be Zarek Valentin at 5.0 from Minnesota versus New York Red Bulls. I'm really just going on price here. He might be a good option for a switcheroo. He started the last game. He's inexpensive. If he starts again, it's decent price. So there's some other options on the road who I tend to avoid defenders on the road just because teams are less likely to keep clean sheets. They're more likely to score fewer goals. So, but if you're looking at someone like Alex Roldan, that's a tough matchup against FC Cincinnati for a clean sheet. But I think, you'd be hoping for an attacking return from him in that one. I might stay away from Reagan, the center back this week from Seattle, though, just because he's really going to need clean sheets in order to be a good option, I think. Brandon Bye and Dwan Jones from New England, they go to LAFC. I'm staying away. I'm also staying away from LAFC's defenders. I just don't like either of those defenses in this matchup. Obviously, Brandon Bye can get forward and get some attacking returns any week, same with Dwan Jones. But that's what you'd be looking for. Next up, if you're looking at Brooks Lennon and Andrew Gutman, they're also away, but Atlanta's been crossing a lot, and maybe their new striker, Gumakis, maybe he gets something out of it. But it's definitely a little bit more of a risk. But Charlotte's also not really looked too threatening going forward, so that might actually be a decent week to go with one of those players for midfielders. So looking at the premium mids, you've got DeRussi, and I think that he's really goal and assist dependent on his score, and you have to decide if he can do that against RSL. They're not really giving up a ton of chances, so that might be a week to stay away from him. Almada, this year, I think that we've gotten the Almada experience. 2 huge plays and a big score versus San Jose, and then what he did against Toronto, and that's what you're going to get with him this year. I think that he's going to need to be scoring or assisting in order to be viable this year, at least until Atlanta can get some reinforcement in midfield, because I think he's being asked to do a lot on the carrying the creative side just on his own. Gazdag at Philly, I think he's a great captain option this week against Chicago. He's an easy buy for me, and I'd want him on my team, even playing midweek in CCL. Zayla Ryan, I think that he's another player who's similar to DeRussi, needs a goal or an assist or something in order to have a decent score. So a bit of a lower floor guy, but Toronto's looked a little bit rough defensively this year. They look old and slow, and I think that he can get something out of the game. But like I said, his floor is probably a little bit lower than some other options. Harley Skill, his floor is decent, right? Like, he'll usually get 5 or 6 points, even if he doesn't get a goal or an assist. And LAFC didn't keep a clean sheet against Portland. He might be a good option since he's usually involved in a goal that New England scores. Evander, he got a goal from a penalty against LAFC for Portland. He's had, in his 2 games, he's got a total of 4 shot-creating actions, but he didn't have a shot against SKC, and he got 3 points in that game. So is he another kind of low floor, high ceiling guy who's not going to get a lot of bonus? Is that a gamble that you want to take? Again, they're playing St. Louis, so I think that there might be goals in that game. Looking at the FCC, the Cincinnati versus Seattle game, Acosta and Loidero, they're playing each other. It's a tough matchup for both teams. It's the kind of game that ends 1-1, I think, most weeks. But Acosta is usually involved in the goals for Cincy, and both have a decent floor. Loidero might have a better floor, though he's on the road. Acosta is at home, so that might be a decent pick. Looking back at San Jose again, Christian Espinoza, he's got 2 assists, but his goal threat isn't the best. He is creating shots and getting key passes. Those are solid numbers for him. Colorado's struggling, and San Jose is at home. Those are all things that are going for him, but he's not getting a ton of bonus points. So is he going to get another assist this week? Do you want to rely on that if that's the best way that he's going to get returns? Finally, if Mukhtar is starting, I think that you get him at home against Montreal. It's pretty easy. If he starts, he's also in the conversation for captain this week. Looking at sort of the budget defenders, I think that this is a tough spot. There's a lot of players in this area that are away from home that I am not really that interested in bringing in. If you look at someone who's gotten some good returns, though, is Nwobodo from Cincinnati. He's got a goal and an assist in the first game, 7 points in game week 2. At 7.5, he's not a bad price, and he looks to be nailed on. I think he's an interesting option, but he's definitely a little bit more of a defensive midfielder, and this is not typical of what he did with Cincy last year. And then Lowen from St. Louis, I still like him quite a lot. He's going to be, I think, the main distributor for them, and he'll probably be involved in build up for goals this season with them. But once again, he's away to Portland, so might be some better options to look at there. For budget players, looking at Stroud from St. Louis again, he had 3 points, 3 shot creating actions against Charlotte, but he's not really been a bonus point guy this year, so you're going to need a goal or an assist for him to score, get a decent score in fantasy. Then looking at Neil Buck, he's still starting for the Revs. That might change, and that might be the only thing that he's got going for him. He gets forward, so maybe he gets on the end of something or can put in a cross or something like that. But he's inexpensive at 4.3, so if you want a cheap way into a switcheroo, he'd be a good choice maybe. Forwards, I really like forwards this week. I think that, looking at the matchups, you've got Julian Carranza for Philly. He had 14 goals last year and 10 were at home. To me, he's an easy pick against weaker teams at home, and Chicago is definitely a weaker team. Bernardeschi, 2 goals in 2 games, and he gets the Crew, who are I think, struggling defensively, even with their clean sheet against DC last week. We saw what Philly did against them in week 1, and I think he'll get something in this one. I like him a lot. Ivo Bise, once again, I think that he's primed for a really solid year this year, and I really like San Jose at home against Colorado. An interesting pick, and one that's not kind of on the pricier side, is Swiderski for Charlotte. It's hard to remember that Charlotte actually has an MLS team. That's one that's really hard to stick in my head for some reason. But, I like that as a matchup for him. The goal that Toronto scored was on some mistakes basically all over the field for Atlanta, and I think that they're still trying to figure out their shape. I think that this could be a decent game for him. Jefferson Savarino versus Austin. RSL came back against Vancouver, and Austin's backline has been a mess this year. They've given up 2 comedy goals. And he's a good striker, and this is a nice matchup for him. He only costs 8.6, so a decent price. Some kind of budget or differential options could be Cade Cowell. Once again, he's nailed and got Colorado at home. Talis Magno with NYCFC is at 7.4. Matthias Pellegrini at 6.1. I think that they're at home in New York. I think that that's a tough stadium to play in. I think Miami's going to struggle, and I think that they've been a little bit lucky defensively this year. I think New York is going to score, and one or both of these guys will be involved in that. I wanted to really quickly touch on some team structure and kind of the pros and cons of kind of how you could set things up. Looking at, say, a 3-5-2, it allows you to max out on midfielders, and to me the downside on this is that I don't think that you can get 5 premium midfielders at this point, and those sort of mid-tier 7.5-ish mids, they don't really seem like they've got great matchups, and you might need to go with a budget forward and a premium forward in order to get in order to make this work. So that's one that right now I would stay away from. A 4-5-1 could be interesting. This isn't something you typically go for in fantasy, but it would allow you to kind of max out on those higher priced defenders like Gressel, Wagner, and Zimmerman. Gressel's at home against Dallas this week, but he's playing out of position as a midfielder, so you're always going to like that. But you could go with those three, and then Carranza or Iwo Bise, and is that going to outscore kind of the other formations like a 3-4-3 that I think people more typically run? 4-4-2, this looks like it's got the worst parts of the 4-5-1 and the 3-5-2. You'd want 2 or 3 premium defenders, and it would need to sacrifice forwards, I think, in order to get it to work in the end, as well as kind of, looking at those more lower-priced midfielders who, right now, I just don't see any that are clicking. 3-4-3, this works great because you get 3 solid forwards. They've got favorable games this week, and then you need to go with a budget midfielder, though, or do a switcheroo in order to make it viable. 4-3-3. So this is basically what I'm running, but right now it's set up as a 3-4-3, and it'll either end up being a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3, depending on how the switcheroos work out. So I've got 2 starting defenders with the switcheroo scrub defender, and then either Mascara or Valentin will come in, and then I've got a scrub midfielder, and either one of those 2 or maybe Stroud will come in. And that's letting me get 3 premium midfielders and 3 solid forwards, and I really like that setup for this week. For captaincy options, I am looking at Gastag and Mukhtar, maybe Bernadeschi, but I'm leaning towards the 2 midfielders. They've got good matchups. Gastag played 30 minutes midweek in CCL, so maybe he's not the best. And then Mukhtar's still getting back to fitness, so do you take that risk? Obviously, lineups come out, and you'll be able to decide Saturday whether or not you want to keep the armband on him if he's starting, or just completely move off of him if he's not. But I like the matchup for Nashville slightly better, and if he's starting, I think that I'm going to stick with Mukhtar for the armband. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next week. Bye.